It's that key point of reasonable revenue for responsible programs. Often we in the faith community may get metaphorically patted on the head and said, isn't that sweet, you faith folks are always for those who are left out. So thoughtful, but how naive. The fact is, we're not naive at all. We know that our nation is better if our communities are stronger. We know that we must pay a just price to do the work that needs to be done to heal our society. We know that the responsible way forward is a reasonable tax policy. Taxes are the way we invest in the hope for our future. There's another way that I want to highlight, that because we've heard about the safety net, we've heard about healthcare, we've heard about the need for taxes. There's one big glaring 56% of the budget that we need to talk about, which is defense spending. Defense spending is filled with plans for the various defense contractors' full employment project. There are many programs that the actual Pentagon has said we don't really need, they're not really helpful, but they continue without question. Additionally, we know that there has not really ever been an audit of the Pentagon spending or an audit of many of the various programs that are currently in construction. Just this morning, there was an article in the Post about the F-35 and its huge cost overruns. Well, what we believe as a faith community is that a real security program would have responsible defense spending as well as responsible safety net spending. Responsible spending is where we get actual value for the expenditures that are made of our tax dollars. This is something we in the faith community haven't really talked a lot about, but we know that intersection, that if we are paying our reasonable revenue, then we need to make sure that all programs supported by our tax dollar must be held accountable for getting the highest possible value for the dollar. That doesn't happen in the defense industry. This worries us. Because what we end up with is this specter, the aura, the imagination of security, but without having real security among us. We all know that since September 11, 2001, that the focus on security in our nation has tripled. That more money has been spent on these wars, that it is a huge increase in expenditure. But we also know that many of us don't feel more secure. We have the experience of last night in Baltimore, we have the experience of Ferguson, we have the experience here at home, where our nation is not feeling secure in its communities with each other. We in the faith community hold up what is an authentic security. Security does not come from weapons. Security does not come from intimidation. Security comes from relationship. And so what we say in the Faithful Budget is that the way forward is to build relationship in our communities and around the globe. We're very good at rapid response to tragedy or calamities like in Nepal. Our military is our first strike force to respond. Why don't we have a peace force that is as strong? Why don't we orient ourselves not just to building war, but to building peace? It is that step forward that can make a huge difference. Because what we need is not more ways to be afraid of each other. We know in the faith community, the way to come together is in conversation, in figuring out what we value, what we share together, and then how can we build together on shared values. That creates real defense. That is the way forward for responsible programs. Now, I urge that all of the defense contractors be as vigilant as the STAT program in ensuring that there is no waste, fraud, or abuse. I urge all defense contractors to be as vigilant as the Obamacare implementers are being in making sure that people get actual coverage for health care. I urge that our reasonable revenue be used always for the best possible outcome, which would be creating community building together, easing this fever that Maggie talked about. We the people deserve this. We people of faith know that it's doable, we know it's possible, we are the eternal optimists, but more than that, we're the hardworking folks that show it can be done. And so our faithful budget maps out a way forward. There's one other piece I want to touch on, and that is this issue, and this is the way you know it's a Washington, D.C. Issue, because it's sequestration. It's the oddest word I ever heard, and as I talk around the country, most folks don't have a clue what it is. It sounds like it might be a dread disease, but I'm afraid it is a disease. It's a disease of cowardice. Remember, sequestration was originally implemented as something so horrible that it would force Republicans and Democrats to find a way to compromise. Remember that, back in the dark ages of a few years ago? Well, no one ever thought sequestration would take effect. And with the Murray-Ryan Compromise 2 years ago, we were able to get our way out of it. Currently, there does not appear to be a plan forward that would avoid it. It is an act of cowardice that our leaders cannot find a way to meet the measures to make sure that our budget has reasonable revenue for all of our responsible programs. Now, the faith community probably shouldn't castigate too many people too quickly because we know it's hard work. It's hard to come to these agreements. But what we do know is that that's the responsibility of Congress, is to work these hard issues out in a way that serves the common good. So while we're raising reasonable revenue, while we're protecting healthcare, while we're making sure that the safety net is strong and vibrant for our people in need, we also urge Congress to do the responsible thing and make sure that there is an increase in revenue, a controlling of costs, so that we as a nation can move forward and put the cowardice of sequestration behind us. The time's now. We've got an urgent need in our society. So we urge Congress to please wake up, realize the faith community can do it. So if the faith community can do it, where we're really trying to be nice to each other and had a lot of fights to make this happen, we know that Congress can do it. And as Pope Francis says, I beg the Lord to grant us more politicians who are genuinely disturbed by the state of society, the people, and the lives of the poor. That is the faithful way forward with the budget. Thank you very much.